Hi guys, back with day 11 of the daily exercise videos. Once again, like every other time that I mention, warming up is extremely important. Today was an upper body day, and I did exercises such as pull-ups, low rows, incline bench, and then incline machine press. So for all of those things to function pretty well, I need to warm up my shoulders and my joints really well. If I don't do that, of course the chance of injury is there. I mean, there's always a chance of injury depending on what you do. However, with a good warm up, you lower that risk by quite a bit. Here I just use the band to warm up the rotator cuffs, to activate the muscles through various exercises. And my best advice, if you want to do something like this as well, is you can look at what I'm doing here. However, it is good to just play around with things. I mean, that's really how I got to what I'm doing here. And you can look there in the mirror. The movements that I'm doing is really targeting my back extremely well. And the nice thing with the band is that the further you get to the end, or the closer you get to the end point of what the band can do, the harder the movement becomes. So it's quite easy then to get into the position where you want to be, and then contracting right at the end to really activate that muscle. So therefore I would say bands are extremely good, and you can also incorporate this within your training regime. If you would have a heavier band, it's good to sometimes superset with bands. Even a light band like this can be good enough, as it really helps to contract the right muscles and make sure, did you actually exercise the right muscles with your previous exercise? Or even it can be done beforehand to try and ensure that you want to feel this muscle. So let's do it with a band or you do it with a light band like this to feel that contraction, and then when you're doing it on the machine or with free weights or with a barbell or something, you can actually then feel the right contraction. So I would say it's good to incorporate this before or after, and you must play around and see what works best for you. I'm of course just making sure that I'm warming up the parts that will be under load and that needs to move quite well. So like I said, just play around and see how things go. Today was a day that I felt it is important to still go heavy with exercises. Of course, you can look at things in two ways. The first is that time under tension is extremely important to grow muscle. However, if the weight is heavy and there's no real connection that you have with what you're doing, it is a bit difficult to make sure that you contract the right muscles when doing the exercise. So, of course, when going heavier, the mind-muscle connection that you have might not be as good as what it would be with a lower weight. However, if you want to build muscle, I would still recommend that adding heavy weight or adding weight to your exercise to make it challenging is extremely important, as time under tension, let's say for these pull-ups that I'm doing. So time under tension that I would have to do with no weight at all can also be very beneficial, but then pushing the limits with adding weight around my waist, like this is a 20 kilogram plate that I'm adding, so then technically I'm weighing around 85 kilos, so I'm then pulling, let's just say, around the 100 kilo mark that I'm actually pulling up, which is quite a bit. I do think it's important to do this progressive overload as it really helps you to see how strong you really are. But with time under tension workouts, you never really know how strong you are, and I think for most people who are going to gym, you do want to see whether your strength is increasing. And a good way to do that, for example with the pull-ups, is just adding a plate to it, as it is the most natural move you can do compared to like a cable pull down or something. Here doing some low rows, but having a wider grip, as I wanted to focus a bit more on my upper back and my rhomboids. And I'm doing this much different than before. So here I'm swinging a bit more as I wanted to do heavy weights today. And by having the swing and the momentum, it really helps me to get the weight all the way back and then contract my back. But this is getting quite heavy, and I wouldn't say my form is falling off, but if I can do this at a slower pace, I would say that is still much better, but I don't think I'm strong enough to do that, so I have to have a bit of a swing to try and get the full range of motion in. Another thing, if your gym has a low row machine, but where you put your feet on the supports in the front, the cable is basically just touching the beginning point. You should have something where you add a dumbbell or something to the floor where it is basically just pointing forward, so that there's enough resistance on the floor, and then you just place your feet on those dumbbells to try and get the distance. Or you can even add plates, just put a plate flat on the ground, and then with that resistance being on the floor, you can then also place your feet further back, which gives you a bigger range of motion when doing low rows. Of course, then next we're going to do the incline barbell bench press, and as you saw with the first set that I did, it was just with the bar, and it's important when starting doing exercises that you practice your bar movement every single time. Of course, you don't have to go super light, but at least I think your first set, when you start out with a day of doing this type of exercise, it is good to just do the lowest weight possible and see, is your movement right after your previous exercises? Because I've done back, which then makes your back a bit thicker, as there's a lot more blood in it, so it's a good support for you when you want to do incline. But it is important to see then, when you do a different muscle group, is your movement, is the bar movement correct? And then you can go and add some weight to it. So then I would say your warm-ups should be between 70 to 80% of what you usually do for a heavy set. So I can't do much more than 80 kilos. So therefore 60 kilos for me is a good warm-up, as it is challenging enough to activate my chest. So 80 kilos for me was quite a bit today, but I was able to have 3 sets of this, and I've noticed that my one side of my body, so my one hand is higher than the other hand, and I need to really see, where does that problem start? Is it through my back? Is it through my hips? Or is it just my hand placement? So as I'm pushing that, my hands are rotating a bit more, so my wrists are a bit more in front of the bar, and therefore that range is then shortening, which makes the bar fall down a bit. So there's a lot of things that I have to look at there to see what is the actual problem. I also want to try and screw my hands into the bar more and not just hold it. So by placing the hands a bit more angled, and then wrapping my thumb around and twisting my hand into the bar to make like a solid grip. I'll try that next time and see if this problem continues. Then doing some incline machine press, and this is good because the weight doesn't have to be too heavy to feel a great contraction on your chest, as it is, I think, a lot more controlled than doing barbell incline bench press. And then finishing off with this, just one-handed incline presses as well, but this is focusing on the mid or the upper mid part of my chest and trying to contract those parts. As with a normal seat, you cannot get the contraction as your arms does not move across your body as much. So here, at least with the angled position on the seat, it helps to contract those parts. But yes, all in all, this was a good session for me. I'm very happy with what I did and that everything was pretty heavy, and I can get good connection between what I'm doing and what I wanted. And the next day I could definitely feel proud of my previous workout. So guys, now it's up to you. See if you like this and follow along and try it out for yourself. See you in the next one. Bye bye.